Hi everyone, very good evening and welcome back to CrackGradeB. So today we have the topic of microfinance institutions, right? We are going to understand in this particular lecture about the institutional setup of microfinance institution. What are the regulations onto them, right? How many types of institutional setup that you can see in relation to microfinance is going to be the topic for our discussion today, right? So first let us start this understanding microfinance. See, microfinance has a very broad history, right? So since I guess 3 to 4 decades microfinance is there. NABARD puts out a specific report for how does the microfinance sector is doing in India, right? So ultimately when there is so much focus onto this particular sector, this means this particular sector is fulfilling some of the basic requirements of India. What are those kind of requirements are? For example, poverty elimination, right? Financial inclusion, taking the financial services to the grassroots of our population. So these are few of the things that are fulfilled by strengthening of microfinance institution. Microfinance का मतलब ही क्या होता है? Giving small loans, right? Where the people who are not having, let's say, collateral, but still they need the loans, right? Why? Because they have to start some kind of enterprise, they have to start some kind of small startup, right? Or they might have to put their share in some kind of existing startup. तो अब इन सभी चीज़ों के लिए who's going to provide the loans? So for that particular thing, microfinance institutions, they are in vogue, but there are some problems as well. When we are talking about microfinance institutions, it is not without its fair share of problems. So the problems are, see, there wherever in any particular sector you can see that some of the activities they do go against the vision and the mission for which these institutions have been set up. So yes, there are some institutions who charge high interest rates, right? And they negate the aim of poverty elimination as well as the what you can say financial inclusion. They are existing just for making their profits. So yes, there are problems, there are solutions for them as well, but ये सब हमारा part of discussion नहीं है, right? Because it is a very small part in our rural banking setup. So that is why we are just going to understand about microfinance institutional setup in India, right? So that we have a little bit of clarity over here. थोड़ी बहुत हमारे पास में clarity आ जाए, और उस clarity के बाद में what we are going to do is maybe in today's class or in the next class we are also going to see that what is the present status, right? Not very much, but a little bit of it that I am promising. Now let us see this. So microfinance institutions are what? Microfinance institutions, they are the financial companies that provide the small loans to people who do not have any access to the banking facilities, right? So these are those kind of loans to the people. This is what you can say a generic definition. जिन लोगों के पास में banking facilities नहीं है or they do not have the enough collateral to provide to the banking sector, for them microfinance institutions has been envisaged, right? Microfinance institutions in India, they have been playing what you can say major role in purveyance to small credit, especially to the weaker section without any particular collateral, right? They are contributing immensely to the cause of financial inclusion, as I have already mentioned, right? Poverty elimination, financial inclusion. This is something what their microfinance institutions are aiming at. ये उस चीज पे aim कर रहे हैं. Microfinance sector is very diverse. It comprises of various players of various types and legal forms, like non-banking finance company microfinance institutions, banks are there, small finance banks are there, NBFCs are there, non-profit microfinance institutions are also there. We are going to see a broad setup of that, right? A broad setup, a broad arrangement, institutional arrangement is something that we are going to see. So let us see the different types of institutions that offer microfinance are credit unions, NGOs, commercial banks. Some government banks, they also offer the microfinance to the eligible categories of borrowers. Now, when we are talking about microfinance institutions, we do also have to talk about the goals. Now, for the people, I would like to clarify one thing over here. Goals are just for your understanding, ठीक है? सिर्फ आपके समझने के लिए हैं. If I talk about from the exam perspective, no, these are not that much important. But जब आप microfinance institutions का topic पढ़ रहे हैं, you cannot go from point to point. You also have to read some peripheral information so that you have a clear understanding of what microfinance means, right? So microfinance institutions, they have been gaining popularity and they are now considered as effective tool for the elevation of the poverty, right? Most of the microfinance institutions, they are well run and they have good track records, and others are quite self-sufficient. Now let us see what are their goals, why these particular institutions exist, right? What are they intend doing into? So transform into financial institution that assists in the development of communities that are sustainable. Number one thing, they help in provision of resources to the lower section of our society. Now when I talk about this, the one program comes into my mind, that is self-help group and the bank linkage program. Okay, although we have discussed this particular program early on as well, but I'm hoping that we'll be discussing this very soon, maybe in the next class per se. So there is a special focus on the women in this regard. Okay, women पे special focus है. We want that the women SHGs should come in front, because that is going to increase their status, and that is also going to increase what you can say gender based biasness, that is going to decrease the gender based biasness, as well as their financial inclusion as women is going to come up, their decision making powers are going to increase. So that is why whenever in even in self-help groups program, we are focusing on to the women. Now, evaluate the options which are available to eradicate the poverty at a faster rate. Now, this is the ideal goal that the microfinance institutions are having, but nothing goes as per plan. So, yes, there are microfinance institutions who are not quite on the track records and they are quite not acting as per the goals that have been given to them. But still, let's move forward. Mobilizing the self-employment opportunities for the underprivileged, empowering the rural people by training them into simple skills so that they are capable of setting up income generation businesses. So the whole idea is like this. We have read about National Rural Livelihood Mission, right? दीन दयाल उपाध्याय National Rural Livelihood Mission. वहां पे हम फोकस ही किस चीज पे कर रहे हैं? That people should come together in the form of self-help group, right? Like they should form the groups, then they should start something, right? Group बना के क्या करेंगे? They should start something, they should start saving the money that is going to help them as a capital, right? And when the people they act in a group, it is very easy to get them finance as well. ठीक है, उनको finance या फिर बैंक से किसी तरीके का loan वगैरह दिलाना, that also becomes quite easy. So this is what they are aiming at. Now, the part that microfinance plays in economic development is also noteworthy. Now, what are some key benefits? Let us see. See, so it enables the people. It enables the people to expand their present opportunities, that is income accumulation of the poor households in the presence of microfinance institutions, provides them easy access to credit, right? Self-help group and bank linkage program, this aims for this particular thing only, where what they want that the microfinance institutions should link with the self-help groups and they should provide them the finances as well. So they provide people credit when it is needed the most. Bank do not usually offer small loans to the customer, right? But this is the gap where the microfinance institution come and they fill in. Now next is, it makes the future investment possible. So yes, that is also an important thing over here. Microfinance, it makes more money available to the poor sections of the economy. So apart from the financing the basic needs, it also provides them credit for constructing better houses, better healthcare facilities, right, as well as the business opportunities. So helping on the various fronts is one of the objectives of microfinance institutions, right? Not just with the business related needs, but also with the housing related needs or the medical expenses, sudden medical expenses which can occur. Next, it serves the underfinanced section of the society, right? Unemployed people. Now, what are the underfinanced sector? Underfinanced section is like unemployed people. They must not be having some form of credit history or likewise, so that they should be eligible for the bank related loans. So this is where microfinance helps in, right? Those with the disabilities, they are also the beneficiaries of microfinance. These financing options, they help the people to take control of their lives to the betterment of their living conditions. Next is, it helps in the generation of employment opportunities. They help create jobs in impoverished communities as well. Next thing is, they inculcate the discipline of saving. When the basic needs of people are met, they start saving. See, you will not save until and unless you are not having an objective in front of you. And with the upcoming of microfinance institutions and the setting up of self-help groups, people think that if they will save, they will have what you can say a tool where they can invest their savings, and it is going to help them in future, and it is going to help them the extra amount of penny that they crave for, right? So these are the helpful things regarding the microfinances. Next is bringing about significant economic growth. Yes, because when the credit flow increases to the economy or to the lower section of the economy, what it does, it improves better levels of consumption, improved nutrition, right? So this is also one of the benefit. Economy is growing. It results in better credit management. See, why better credit management? Because micro loans are mostly taken by the women borrowers. Government also focuses that the self-help group should be formed by the women more. Okay? Why? Because I have told you gender justice, and there are a lot of things that we want to improve with inclusion of women, right? So yes, statistics has also proved that female borrowers are less likely to default on the loans, and that is why the microfinance, or let's say your self-help groups, by the inclusion of women, they also result in better credit management practices, right? It results in better education as well. When you have funds, you have family finances, obviously the first two improved things are health and education, right? So these were the importance and the benefits of your microfinance, right? What is the role of the microfinance, why it is important? Now we are going to get some idea about how these are regulated, right? Regulations of the microfinance institutions. So the regulations that pertain to MFI, they are usually based on their statuses, right? Whatever their status is. Microfinance bank, they will be required to adhere to all banking regulation, just like the traditional banks. Whatever RBI says, they have to fulfill it. Okay? अगर आप bank हैं, then whatever regulation is applicable, or let's say on private sector, public sector bank, you have to what you can say. Okay, sorry for the interruption. Let us start back. Yes. So regulations for the microfinance institutions, if that is a microfinance bank, they are going to follow all the regulations just like a traditional bank, whatever is applicable onto them related to RBI Act as well as the Banking Regulation Act 1949. All the directions will be of the RBI will also be applicable onto them. Cooperatives and NGOs, they will not be expected to comply with the same regulations. However, they will be regulated by the similar oversight authorities. That means the regulations are not the same, but yes, oversight will remain the same. Now let us see the provisions of RBI regulatory framework for the microfinance role related directions. So we have to see these directions as well. the income eligibility for the collateral free loans, right? Income eligibility for the collateral free loans from the microfinance institution, it has now increased to 3 lakh annually. Earlier it was 1 lakh rupees, and it was known that an institution which provides the collateral free credit up to rupees 1 lakh is called as the microfinance institution. But अब उसको change कर दिया गया है. The limit now is the 3 lakh annually, right? Each regulated enterprise, they are required to have board approved policy for the microfinance loan pricing, and central bank will now announce the rates on the microfinance loans on a quarterly basis. Why it is being done? Because see, there was so many complaints onto the very high pricing of rates on the microfinance related loans. So for that matter, this has been told that the central bank, that is RBI, is going to announce the rates on the loans on a quarterly basis. Interest rates, other charges, fees, loans, they should be reasonable, and the RBI will conduct supervisory examinations to ensure the compliance, right? Now the next is, how does they get the funding? Microfinance institutions related funding. So what are their funding related sources? So they get the funding from several sources. For example, member and the customer deposits. This is applicable to microfinance institutions that are organized as mutual funds, cooperatives, right, as well as the microfinance banks. They offer saving products. So yes, if you are offering saving products, if you are in the nature of mutual funds or in the nature of cooperatives, you are bound to get the funds from your members or the customers in form of deposits, and the same funds that you are going to use for providing the microfinance loans. Next thing, next source is subsidies and grants. So they are also the prominent one. Apart from that, own capital. When a microfinance institution is being established, there is some amount of capital that is going to be bring in by the owner, right? And that is something we call as own capital. So microfinance institutions, they are going to have their own funds as well in order to give the loans. Loans they also get from partner banks. So this is also a primary source of funding for a microfinance institution which is operating at a lower level, right? So they get the funding from there. Funding received from public investors, that is bilateral or multilateral organizations, they also offer funds to microfinance institutions. This is a source of long-term funding for the microfinance institutions. So see, over here, suppose वर्ल्ड बैंक इज फाइनेंसिंग सम काइंड ऑफ प्रोजेक्ट, ठीक है, अगर वर्ल्ड बैंक किसी तरीके का प्रोजेक्ट फाइनेंस कर रहा है फॉर द पॉवर्टी एलिमिनेशन, राइट? So such kind of fundings, they do also come for the microfinance institutions. And after that we have the funding that is received from the private investors. These funds, they are supplied directly to the microfinance institutions or through investment funds that specializes in the microfinance. This is also the source of long-term funding for the microfinance institutions. See, what happens is, investment funds क्या होते हैं? They have money of the investors and they want to invest in such places where they will get good returns on their investment, ठीक है? Investment funds also want such kind of what you can say, high return rates. So if they want this kind of thing, they can invest in microfinance institutions, because ultimately microfinance institutions, they are not charging, they are not taking the collateral, but when जब वो collateral नहीं ले रहे हैं, then their rate of interest are also what you can say, comparatively high, ठीक है? Rate of interest whatever is charged by the microfinance institution, they tend to be high. Why? Because the risk factor for microfinance institutions is also high, as they are not taking any form of collateral, ठीक है? जब वो आपका कोई सामान रख नहीं रहे हैं, then ultimately they are going to take a high amount of interest rate from you. Getting my point? Now let's move ahead and let's see a glimpse of institutional arrangement for microfinance disbursement, right? So this is what you can say, an indicative setup, right? This is an indicative setup of how microfinance institutions, they are operating in India. Okay, so let us talk about the formal institutions and the informal institutions. uh, are you taking my finance lectures? I'm not clear. Okay, from YouTube. See, if you have got any sort of query, we all have established mechanism for them. Okay, great. So do one thing, please drop us a email, right? And write on the write on that particular mail that please refer it to Sapna ma'am, and they are going to refer it to me. Okay? We cannot discuss it right now, but surely if you'll write a mail, I'm going to reply for that. Okay? Or either if you have means that much problem, you can call on the helpline number, they will suggest you, right? चलिए ठीक है. So this is an indicative setup for the microfinance disbursement. Let us see that formal institutions, informal institutions. See, ultimately where the funding is going for the microfinance, self-help groups and the individuals, right? Self-help groups and the individuals, that is where the funding is going. Both, if the funding is being provided from the formal institutions or the funding is being provided through informal as well. Here we will see wholesale lenders are there like the NABARD, SEBI, etc. Post that, we have retail level banks like commercial banks, regional rural banks, cooperative banks, etc. They also have their fair share in the microfinance. After that, informal lenders, investors, donors, right? These lenders, investors, donors who want a great return onto their funds, जिनको अपने funds पे एक अच्छा return चाहिए, what do? So they give the money to microfinance institutions, right? And ultimately microfinance institutions are giving the funds to self-help groups, joint liability groups, as well as the individuals. If we'll see on a whole and soul, there are so many institutions who can work for the microfinance related thing, but ultimately funds are going to self-help groups, that is the group of people or the individual on their own. ठीक है, या तो इंडिविजुअल्स को जा रहा है या सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप को जा रहा है. In the microfinance institutions, we have non-profit microfinance institutions, that is NGOs. We have cooperatives as well, and we have profit-making microfinance institutions as well, whom we know as your NBFCs, right? Non-banking finance companies. So this is it: microfinance, non-profit, cooperative, profit-making, etc., etc. Now we are going to see little bit about them. ठीक है, थोड़ा बहुत इनके बारे में भी हम जानेंगे, so that we are able to understand that okay, how does this particular setup works in, किस तरीके से काम करता है. चलिए इसको देखते हैं. First of all, we have the apex financial institutions. Right? So apex financial institutions, see this just we saw the diagram, right? We have got the broad points, and now we are going to elaborate those broad points so that we understand that what is the kind of institutional setup that we are witnessing right now. So apex financial institutions, there are number of financial institutions like the NABARD is there, right? Small Industries Development Bank is there, HDFC, HUDCO, and such kind of Gramin Vikas Nidhis. What they do is they provide bulk amount of funds to the retail level banks as well as the microfinance institutions for on lending to the poor. If they want to give the funding to poor related to microfinance, they provide loans not just to the microfinance institutions but also to the retail level banks because they have bulk level of funding. After that, let us see the retail level of banks. So यहाँ पे retail level banks में I am now not just talking about the commercial banks. Commercial banks के साथ साथ में apart from the commercial banks, we are also talking about regional rural banks. We have understood about regional rural banks, right? The kind of functioning etc. ये सब हम समझ चुके हैं. Commercial banks, regional rural banks, as well as the cooperatives and different types of microfinance institution. They provide the microfinance related services. These banks, they provide the loans to individuals, self-help groups and the microfinance institutions directly, right? So what did we understand? We understand that yes, there is an apex financial institution. They provide the funding to the retail level banks. Retail level banks also have 3 channels, right? ये खुद भी लोन दे सकते हैं to self help groups and the individuals, right? There is no bar on to them that they cannot give small amount of loans. ऐसा कुछ वो नहीं है, उनके ऊपर limitation नहीं है. They can give small amount of loans to individuals, to self help groups and even they can form a third layer as well. ठीक है, एक तीसरी layer भी बना सकते हैं by giving the loan to microfinance institutions. ठीक है, microfinance institutions को देके they are going to form a third layer as well. Then we have microfinance institutions and the self-help groups, right? So this is the third layer for us. ये हमारे लिए तीसरी layer है, that is the end layer. So microfinance institutions and the self-help groups, they are the organizations or the associations of individual, right, that they are providing financial services to the poor. Now in India, there is a wide range of such organizations and they have so many different kind of legal forms varying significantly in sizes, outreaches, mission and the credit delivery methodologies as well. किस तरीके से वो credit देते हैं. So basically the idea is, see, I would like to tell you one thing over here. There are so many kind of forms as well as the setups of it, right? बहुत ही छोटा छोटा nitty-gritties है. But when you have a topic and you have got 4 modules, right? In those 4 modules also you have multiple of topics. In those multiple of topics, microfinance institution is a very small part. तो इस बहुत छोटे से part के लिए whatever you needed to know, we have tried to include it over here. Maybe in the next part, I am also going to include the latest government as well as the NABARD steps related to microfinance, right? वो भी मैं एक extra से include कर लूँगी in case something gets asked about it. So वो भी एक coverage रहेगा. But yes, the latest things about the microfinance as well as this institutional setup is something that will do for you, because the topic is not microfinance. Topic आपका सिर्फ microfinance नहीं है, it is microfinance institutions. So that is something we need to cover, right? I would also like to cover a latest RBI data regarding that कि भाई क्या coverage है, क्या सब कुछ चल रहा है, तो वो भी हम सोचेंगे कि cover करने के लिए. But आज के lecture में I'm going to only cover what is mentioned into your syllabus. Whatever extra is there, we are going to cover in the next lecture. So let's come back to the topic. So yes, we are discussing the broader aspects of the microfinance institutions. Let us see. Now, how does this delivery models work? Microfinance related delivery models in India. Let us see that. So in India, the microfinance, it is provided through self-help group bank linkage model. We have seen that this particular scheme was started back in the year 1992, and microfinance institutions model. So self-help group and the bank linkage model, it was developed by the NABARD, right? And it is widely prevalent throughout the country. In this model, the informal self-help group, they are credit linked with the formal banking सिस्टम. सो हमारे पास में 2 मॉडल्स हैं माइक्रो फाइनेंस प्रोवाइड करने के लिए. नंबर 1 इज द स्कीम रिलेटेड पार्ट, that is there, self-help group and the bank linkage program under NABARD, and the other one we have microfinance institutions, right? Microfinance institution is used by the various microfinance institutions who wants to reach rural poor people in the areas and those who are not served by the formal banking. So in this self-help group and the bank linkage program, we aim to establish a direct link. ठीक है, यहाँ पे हम एक direct link establish करने का सोच रहे हैं, and the setup that we just saw in the diagram, right? That is the next part, that is microfinance institutions model. यहाँ पे government इनको add नहीं कर रही है. Government is not linking a self-help group and the bank, but these microfinance institutions, they themselves are going to the rural people that if you want loan, we can provide you. Not just the self-help groups, but the individuals as well. ठीक है? So I hope you understand and you have got the clarity that yes, there are two ways. Number one, microfinance institutions who are going by themselves, identifying the people who might be needing the credit, right? Individuals are approaching them, as well as self-help groups are also approaching them. And then we also have one other section that is called as self-help group and the bank linkage program, where the government or the NABARD is also trying to link the informal self-help group with the formal banking system. Okay, got it? Now let us move ahead. We are going to discuss, start with the self-help group. So यहाँ पे we are going to have a basic understanding of what does a self-help group means, right? क्या मतलब है self-help group का? So self-help groups, these are small, informal and the homogeneous group of 10 to 20 members each. The members are of almost equal economic and social status. They are chosen so that there is no mutual conflict. See, at the end of the day, if your group want to save, if your group want to provide the funding, then they have to have a quite similar mindset, right? I'll not say identical mindset, but yes, a similar mindset would be needed. The members, they are encouraged to make a voluntary thrift on a regular basis. They are encouraged to save on a regular basis. The group members, they mutually decide about the amount as well as the frequency for individual savings that they will be deposited in the group accounts. See, when you act in a self-help group, obviously you get the formal banking loans related thing. आपका एक credit establish हो जाता है, and it has been seen that such kind of loans, they also have lower percentage of NPA. ठीक है, NPA भी इतना ज़्यादा जो है नहीं होता. They use these kind of pooled resources to make small interest bearing loans to their members within the groups, right? This process, this is known as the interloaning. They gradually build financial discipline among the group member, and they learn how to handle the resources of a size. Sometimes when the group members are not so, what you can say, educated, or let's say they are not having so much of understanding that they can manage the financials, right? They do not show such kind of maturity, so such kind of groups, they fail also. But right now the government is more focused on forming women in self-help groups. Yes, so the bank loans, they are given without any collateral, right? So this is a win-win situation, without any collateral, and it is at specified interest rate. Banks find it convenient to lend the money to the group rather than the individual, right? Why not to individual? Because the credit risk is high when the loan is being provided to the individual. ठीक है, अगर किसी individual को loan दिया जा रहा है, then the credit risk is more as compared to the group, because there are so many people on whom you can impose the liability, or you can hold them responsible, right? So this is also, and there is a group pressure as well. ठीक है, तो वो सारी चीजें एक साथ काम करती हैं. Generally the banks, they charge between 9 to 10% of interest rates per annum from the self-help groups. Now this is something which you should ignore, right? This is an indicative thing, right? This is an indicative thing. I am not stating a fact over here, right? So this is something indicative, and this is something which changes with the time. It changes with the institution. ठीक है, हर चीज के साथ में ये चेंज करता है. Self-help group and the bank linkage model, it is developed in India to provide the microfinance with the help of vast rural network of the formal financial sector. In this model, the informal self-help groups, they are credit linked with the formal financial institution. It uses the self-help group as an intermediation. The bank provides the resources, and the bank officials, NGOs or the government agency, they organize the poor in the form of self-help groups. Now there are few models in it as well, right? How different kinds of institutional structure or different kinds of methodologies are also being used in it. ठीक है, अब देखो जब methods अलग हो जाएंगे or the models will be different, so in the institutional setup that is going to emerge out of it would also be different. ठीक है, वो भी जो है थोड़ा सा different, थोड़ा सा अलग हो जाता है. How does that happen? So let us see. self-help groups formed and financed by banks. So this is the number one model that we are having. अब यहाँ पे bank themselves they take up the work of forming and nurturing the group, opening their savings account as well as providing them the bank loans. Number one. Number two, what is model two? So self-help groups they are formed by the agencies other than the banks, and then they are directly financed by the bank. That means formation work is done by someone else and bank just provides the credit. Bank सिर्फ credit दे देते हैं. So in this model, NGO as well as the other formal agencies in the field of microfinance facilities, they organize, form as well as nurture self-help groups and train them in savings and the credit management. Thrift means savings or the credit management. The banks then directly give loans to such self-help groups. Bank directly इनको funding दे देते हैं. Then we have model 3. In model 3, self-help groups, they are financed by the banks using other agencies as financial intermediaries. That means the direct funding is not being provided, and the funding is being provided through the intermediation or by the inclusion of other agencies in between. So this is the model where the NGOs they take on additional role of financial intermediation along with the formation of groups, right? In areas where the formal banking system they faces the constraint, the NGOs they are encouraged to form the groups and to approach a suitable bank for the bulk loan assistance. So this is the thing. Now this number 2 setup, that is microfinance institution. Acha, microfinance institutions ko we are differentiating a little bit, right? So यहाँ पे क्या होगा, you will see profit making, non-profit making and all of that. Local area banks they also include in the microfinance institutions when they provide such kind of funding. The number one thing that we saw is self-help group formation. That means the individuals who need the loans they have formed a group of themselves, right? Microfinance institutions, let us talk about it. So it is found worldwide where the self-help group bank linking model is an Indian model. ठीक है, microfinance सब जगह है और SHG BLM is our what we have made in India. So in microfinance institutions model, these institutions they borrow large amount of funds from the apex financial institutions, right, donors as well as the banks, so that they can lend. Now this particular thing if you have watched very clearly, this should be clear to you from the diagram that we saw. ठीक है, उस diagram से ही काफी चीजें हमको clear हो जानी चाहिए. So these microfinance institutions, yes, they take the funds from financial apex financial institutions, for example NABARD, SEBI. Donors there are various kinds of investment funds as well, तो वो भी दे देते हैं, so that they can give the loan to individuals or the groups. In the self-help group and the bank linkage model, we did not include individuals. वहाँ पे हमने individuals को include नहीं किया, but यहाँ पे individuals भी हैं. These microfinance institutions they provide the financial services, right, like self-help group, Grameen groups, etc. These institutions they typically receive external funding for their lending operations, right? So like the small industries development bank SEBI, which has for many years promoted and funded microfinance institutions, NABARD and the Friends of Women's World Banking as well as the public and private banks. Now let us see, microfinance institutions they are extremely heterogeneous groups. That means they have so many different forms and categories. ठीक है, any institution that can provide or that has the ability to provide small value of loans will be called as a microfinance institutions, right? So that is why we see such amount of heterogeneity when we are talking about a MFI. So let us see the types of it, legal forms of it, right? For profit making microfinance institutions, that is NGOs, mutual benefit microfinance institutions, they are similar to cooperatives, right, but not exactly the cooperatives. Then we have for profit and then we also have local area banks as well. Let us see this. So non-profit making MFIs, see, majority of these kind they are registered as trusts or societies. The society is registered under the Society Registration Act. Trust is created under Indian Trust Act, right? The companies, if they are for non-profit making institution, they want to formulate themselves in a form of company, they can register under the Companies Act 2013 as well in form of non-profit companies. That means their origin could be anything, ठीक है, इनका जो origin है वो कुछ भी हो सकता है. Now these activities, they are restricted to charity or other social purposes. Obviously that is why we are calling them as non-profit microfinance institutions. These companies, because they are non-profit, they cannot take group savings of their clients. So this is an important thing. And then we have mutual benefit microfinance institutions. Let us see that as well. So mutual benefit microfinance institutions, they are in the form of mutually aided cooperative societies, right? They can be registered under the State Cooperative Societies Act or the Multi-State Cooperative Societies Act, but there is an exception, right? They does not include. What is the exclusion over here? So a cooperative bank, which is defined under Banking Regulation Act, this is not, that cannot be over here, right? उसकी हम यहाँ पे बात नहीं कर रहे. We are not talking about a cooperative bank. We are talking about a cooperative society. Next is cooperative society which is engaged in agriculture operations. So this is also something which we exclude when we are talking about a cooperative mutual microfinance institution, right? And then lastly we have the for-profit microfinance institution. For-profit microfinance institution means these kind of organizations, these are doing the work of microfinance, right? Microfinance का work तो कर रहे हैं, but they are doing it for profit, right? Not for anyone's benefit. So for-profit microfinance institution, they include non-banking financial companies as well as the local area banks, right? These in India, they are larger in size. They are registered under the Companies Act 2013 and they are regulated by RBI. These companies, they can deposit savings of client with them. So they could be there is again a bifurcation in it, but we are not going into that much detail. We are going to keep it very simple, very straightforward, and that for-profit microfinance institutions can be in the form of NBFC as well as your local area banks. Both have different kinds of setup. Local area bank is obviously directly a bank. NBFC is non-banking finance companies, right? And they are regulated as such. So in NBFCs, there is a specific categorization of microfinance institution, and this is that particular categorization. And lastly, we have local area banks. So local area banks, these are the private banks which are permitted to operate in few districts. They are able to deliver the credit and provide savings and insurances. So these were the broad things about the microfinance institutions that I wanted to discuss. Microfinance institution related topic. This was the basic of microfinance institution, to have a broader understanding of how does a microfinance institution looks like in India, right? Or what its structure could be in India. I hope you would have understood this well. If you did understand this, then please do not forget to like this particular video, and thank you so much for joining in. Tomorrow we are going to see some of the current affair part of it, the initiatives that has been launched by the government as well as the NABARD for the microfinance institutions related setup. And one more thing that we are leaving behind is micro insurance today, and that also we are going to complete tomorrow. So this is it in this particular lecture. Thank you so much for joining in.